It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, live from the United Nations in New York. Our top story. Trump backs Ukraine in a major policy shift, telling Kiev it can win back all the territory it has lost to Russia.
I thought that was going to be the easiest one because of my relationship with Putin, but unfortunately that relationship didn't mean anything, unfortunately.
Mr. Trump also hits out at the UN, accusing it of fueling a migration crisis and describes climate change as a hoax. Meanwhile, a man is convicted of trying to assassinate the US president at a Florida golf course last year.
Also ahead on Sky News at 10 tonight, the Health Secretary tells expectant mothers to ignore Donald Trump's claim that paracetamol increases the risk of autism. The Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, warns against allowing Trump's America to become Farage's Britain. We have a special report from the front line of the fight against a child-on-child sexual abuse crisis. Plus, tributes to the former Test cricket umpire Dickie who has died at the age of 92. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight.
Good evening from New York, where President Trump has thrown his weight firmly behind Ukraine in what appears to be a major shift in policy. He said the friendly relationship he thought he had with President Putin didn't mean anything, unfortunately. He told Ukraine that it can win back all the territory it has lost to Russia. And Mr. Trump told NATO allies that they should shoot down Russian aircraft that violate the alliance's airspace. The comments came at the end of an extraordinary day during which the US president described global warming as a hoax and warned Western leaders that their countries were going to hell because of unchecked migration, and the United Nations was partly to blame. Well, our US correspondent Mark Stone reports.
A hastily arranged news conference in the basement of the UN building. The smile on his face suggested something significant. He'd just come from a meeting with President Trump.
Trump is a game changer.
Just minutes earlier, in a lengthy post which represented a startling shift from Trump, he wrote, "I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not?"
Mr. President, just tell us how significant is this post by the President? How significant is
Madame
it?
Annalena Baerbock is waiting.
It's a big shift by President Trump.
Shift. This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's a big shift. It's very positive.
Zelenskyy would not be drawn on why Trump had shifted position, except to say that the president now understood the situation on the battlefield. The hints of a shift came earlier in a public moment from a meeting that was otherwise private.
Do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
Earlier, his address to the United Nations General Assembly was a full-throttle assault on the institution.
What is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential.
He framed it with the tone of a campaign speech as his success versus the UN's failure.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal.
The speech was a familiar weave, but with no real news-making thread. On the environment and climate change, there was more than anticipated, but entirely on brand.
It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know?
He chose not to recognise that the UN is only the sum of its parts, a body that relies on consensus and is hampered by vetoes. His language will resonate with an aligned proportion of conservatives globally. Language that reflects his view that this chamber, this body, has become a useless liberal institution. He then weaved to immigration.
Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, It's actually creating new problems for us to solve. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
There was much less on the big geopolitical challenges. On Gaza, he had no solution, despite being the only one with the power to grip the challenge. But nor did he back Israeli annexation of the West Bank, as some had feared.
Instead of giving in to Hamas's ransom demands, those who want peace should be united with one message: release the hostages now. Just release the hostages now.
On Ukraine, contrition that it's been much harder than he thought. And here his focus was, with some logic, on Europe. Stop buying Russian oil, he said.
They're funding the war against themselves.
Foreign Minister Mark Stone from Sky News. Will you stop buying Russian energy?
Thank you very much.
Can we just establish whether Germany will stop buying Russian energy?
We're not giving into this now.
The President was very clear that it's not a good idea.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you just confirm that you will stop buying Russian energy? Why are you buying Russian energy, sir?
It is a fractured world, no question, and from this global body, no unity, but a curious shift from this unpredictable president. Mark Stone, Sky News in New York.
Well, let's bring in our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, who joins me now. Dom, what a wild sort of 8 hours it's been from the first thing in the morning when we heard that sort of rambling rant from Donald Trump, where he was telling the UN, frankly, you know, to go to hell. He essentially used those words, and the countries who were there, to the end of the day in that Truth Social post where he was pledging support for Ukraine like, frankly, we haven't seen before.
Yeah, and it's a day where we were told by the White House this was going to be a major foreign policy speech, and then it just really wasn't. You know, as Mark was saying, that it kind of went through the motions. There was nothing new in it. What it said about Gaza and Ukraine, we have heard before. Then I spoke to a member of the Ukrainian delegation, and he said that he thought there was a slight shift in what Trump was saying about the fact that he will impose more sanctions on Russian oil if Europe stops buying oil. But he said he didn't feel it was conditional. He said he'll do that, but the Europeans have also got to do their bit. And then from the European head, we heard from Ursula von der Leyen. She said that, yes, Europe is going to do more on that front. And then it seems in the meeting with Zelenskyy, but also this interesting aside that what he said alongside Emmanuel Macron, the French president, when he said, I thought I had a relationship with Putin, but it wasn't the relationship I thought. It didn't mean the same thing. Clearly something is shifting in what the president is thinking about Russia and Ukraine. And what I think is really interesting about this Truth Social post is he's framing it in a sort of economic sense. He's saying the Russians are queuing up for gasoline. He understands about the economy. You know, he sees himself very much as a businessman. So he brings that prism to all his analysis of world affairs. And he thinks the Russians are losing this war economically. And crucially, we have seen that in the last few weeks, new analysis showing that Ukrainians are really hurting Russia's oil producing and refining capability, hitting 16 out of 38 refineries since August. So it's possibly that, but also Zelenskyy hinted at as frontline intelligence and information that he's given the president that I think really exposes what Putin is telling Trump as a pack of lies. Now, we have to say, of course, with Trump, you've got to always qualify what he says, as we heard from the Czech president. You know, judge him on his deeds, not his words. He could easily tomorrow say something completely different. He's a hugely mercurial, unpredictable, maverick president. But something seems to have shifted. This feels pretty significant. We'll have to see how it plays out. But I think, you know, to have done so, you know, on a day like this, on the same day that he gave the speech, it does look something is shifting in the president's mind, and this won't go down well in Moscow, of course, at all.
No, we'll have to wait and see how Moscow reacts and responds. Dom, thank you so much for all of your analysis. Well, let's just turn now to Mr. Trump's renewal in his speech of his feud with the Mayor of London and his claims that the city wants to go to Sharia law. Have a listen.
Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
Donald Trump speaking a little earlier. Well, let's go straight to our political correspondent, Mari Aurora, who joins us from the US Embassy in central London. And Mari, I mean, quite extraordinary standing there on the world stage and talking there about London's mayor.
Absolutely, Alda. Quite extraordinary and perhaps slightly baffling to pick a fight with the Mayor of London when you are talking to the Globe. Now, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, his spokesperson, gave us a statement in response to those comments from the US President, where they say we are not going to dignify his appalling and bigoted comments with a response. London is the greatest city in the world, safer than major US cities, and we're delighted to welcome the record number of US citizens moving here. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has also criticised those comments, saying Sadiq Khan is not trying to impose Sharia law in London, and then goes on to list all of the ways that he believes Sadiq Khan is doing a great job in London and improving people's lives. And he ends that by saying he's proud that he is our mayor in London. Now, a Labour MP, Rosanna Allen Khan, has gone further. She believes that actually the US ambassador should be summoned to be challenged about those comments. And she has called it rampant Islamophobia, of course, because the reference to Sharia law, as we know, Sadiq Khan is a proud Muslim. And let's not forget, Donald Trump has form on this. He has criticised Sadiq Khan over the summer when he was in Scotland in the room with Keir Starmer, and Keir Starmer had to basically say, hold on a second, he's my friend. He also did the same on Air Force One very recently to reporters after his state visit, saying he requested Sadiq Khan not be at the banquet. So clearly he has a bone to pick with Sadiq Khan trying to rise above it.
Mari, thank you so much for that update. Now, meanwhile, in Florida, a man has been found guilty of trying to assassinate President Trump at his West Palm Beach golf course last September. Ryan Ruth attempted to stab himself after the verdict was handed down this evening. Well, let's go straight to our US correspondent, David Blevins. And David, in many ways, the timing of all this, a week or so after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, for this verdict to be handed down, you sort of realize how close Donald Trump came twice to being assassinated.
Yes, and the US Attorney General Pam Bondi says this conviction is evidence that they are taking concerns about political violence seriously. Ryan Ruth had pleaded not guilty. It took the jury just 2 hours to convict him on all 5 counts, including the attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. You may recall that he was arrested close to one of Donald Trump's golf courses at West Palm Beach in Florida last September. A Secret Service agent had spotted him hiding in the bushes and aiming a rifle at Donald Trump and opened fire, causing him to flee briefly. This was just 2 months after Donald Trump had survived another assassination attempt at Butler, Pennsylvania. There were some very dramatic scenes in the courtroom because the jury were just leaving, having delivered their verdict, when Ryan Ruth grabbed a pen and attempted to stab himself in the neck, his daughter screaming for him not to harm himself, and marshals intervening to remove him from the courtroom very quickly indeed. Donald Trump this evening has described him as an evil man with evil intent. He will be sentenced at a later date and is facing a life term.
David, thank you so much for that update there. Well, Donald Trump has stirred several pots today. We're expecting the fallout from what he's had to say on Ukraine, the UN, migration and much else to continue to reverberate around this building here for days to come. Back to you, Anna, in the studio.
Yelda, thank you. And sticking with that theme, and here the Health Secretary has told expectant mothers to ignore Donald Trump's claims linking paracetamol to autism in children. The US President has suggested the painkiller is the potential cause of a meteoric rise in cases in the United States. Well, Wes Streeting says there's no evidence of that, as our health correspondent Laura Bundock reports.
Liz Bell is 9 months pregnant and due any day. it's her first baby, and she's taken paracetamol at different points of her pregnancy.
One of the things that you are always told you can have to manage pain relief is paracetamol. So for that to now be thrown into doubts, and for lots of women around the world to now question whether they can have that pain relief I think it's awful.
Like all new mums, Liz has a lot of information to navigate, but was furious when she heard Trump linking autism to paracetamol.
I was really, really angry. I was angry because I knew myself before I'd even checked, because it's Trump, that there wouldn't be enough scientific evidence behind what he was saying. And then when I did do my own research, I saw exactly that. So I was angry that this misinformation was being spread on such a wide global stage.
Her anger is shared by many. April Austin teaches antenatal classes. She's also autistic and has a child with autism.
You come out and you say, oh, I have autism, people tend to look at you a little bit differently, and the favourite one I get is, you don't look like you're autistic. There is already so much misinformation and a lack of research and understanding of what autism is, and this just pushes the stigma onto autism being a problem.
Trump's advice has been robustly refuted by the health secretary.
I would just say to people watching, don't pay any attention whatsoever to what Donald Trump says about medicines.
A bit, yeah.
In fact, don't even take my word for it as a politician.
Okay.
Listen to British doctors, British scientists, the NHS.
And from NHS leaders, disbelief, anger and outrage.
We've done extensive research. We really understand the science behind this, and there is no evidence at all that paracetamol is anything other than safe. And in fact, we would encourage women who've been prescribed paracetamol to keep taking it, because we only prescribe medicines in pregnancy for very good reasons.
Experts from the UK, Europe and globally have united in response. Paracetamol is safe, and the far bigger risk here, believing President Trump's extraordinary rhetoric. Laura Bundock, Sky News, Milton Keynes.
The Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, has warned against letting Trump's America become Farage's Britain. He told the party's annual conference in Bournemouth that a reform government would privatise the NHS, legalise fracking and roll back gun laws. Our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, reports now from Bournemouth.
With the sun shining in Bournemouth, the Liberal Democrat leader doing what he so often does. Playing for the cameras. But Ed Davey knows it's the winning that counts, not taking part. A new politics caused by the rise of Reform UK means a new message unveiled today.
As every day goes by, it gets clearer. The two old parties can't deliver that change. Neither of those old parties can win back people's trust. So it comes down to us or Nigel Farage. We are.
The Reform leader's name mentioned over 30 times in just under an hour. When you think of Nigel Farage, he wants you to think of Donald Trump.
Imagine living in the Trump-inspired country Farage wants us to become, where gun laws are rolled back. So schools have to teach our children what to do in case of a mass shooting. Trump's America, don't let it become Farage's Britain.
Growing the economy the Lib Dem way. No mention of the spending black hole. It's all about getting closer to Europe.
Plans to rebuild our relationship with Europe, tearing down the conservative trade barriers with a new customs union. Boosting trade and putting us back on the path to the single market.
He thinks he's the optimist in British politics.
We believe in the British people. We love our country, and together we can change it for good. Thank you.
Ed Davey presents a choice for Britain between Reform UK and the Liberal Democrats, and he loves to present Nigel Farage as a bogeyman. But with gaps in the economy, migration and social justice, can his vision of optimistic patriotism really propel the Liberal Democrats to the next level? Wasn't it a bit weird that he didn't mention the Prime Minister by name once? There wasn't really an attack on Labour at all.
I didn't notice it. I was very excited about he was mentioning. I hadn't noticed it at all, to be honest with you.
Maybe it wasn't as left-wing as perhaps it's been in the past. Maybe it wasn't focused on more than pointing out the flaws in what the right wing are bringing to the country.
Two-party politics dismantling before our eyes. The Liberal Democrats have waited in the wings for years for this to happen. They want it to be them, not reform, that takes centre stage. Sam Coates, Sky News, Bournemouth.
A support service which helps thousands of child abuse survivors every year has told Sky News that there's been an alarming rise in child-on-child sex abuse. The latest figures show that in cases where age was recorded, more than half of perpetrators were aged between 10 and 17. A warning that Alice Porter's report contains distressing content, including references to child sexual abuse and exploitation.
Sky News is the first broadcaster to film inside the National Association for People Abused in Childhood.
Take your time, I know it's difficult to have these conversations.
Their support service in Stockport hears from all types of victims. This caller was beaten as a child by his dad, suffering broken bones. He's having to look after his elderly abuser.
It's caring for his father, which is triggering all those unsafe feelings that he had when he was a child.
Since NAPAC started in 1998, they've become aware of trends in offending, such as ritual abuse.
We've had multiple callers that have talked to us about being triggered by the smell of soil, and their memory has been that they were buried to the point of death and then they were revived.
NAPAC works with the police in responding to group-based sexual offending.
One of the most shocking findings in 2024 is the massive rise in child-upon-child abuse. So that means within a group-based setting, 2 or more people, 24% of those are children committing serious sexual contact offences against other children. And I would say it's a crisis that's happening now.
The National Police Chiefs Council collates data on sexual offences against young people for England and Wales. It shows that, where age was recorded, over half of all perpetrators were between the ages of 10 to 17. That means in 1 year, over 39,000 children sexually abused or exploited other children. And when there was more than one perpetrator, child-on-child abuse is now the second highest after familial, and more common than child sexual exploitation, which includes grooming gangs. The NPCC supports forces in tackling sexual abuse, including child-on-child.
Over 40% of those crimes are crimes that relate to indecent images of children. And amongst those, the vast majority are self-generated images that have been taken by a child, usually a teenager, who shares it with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and that is consensual. Where it changes is when a child is coerced into taking those photographs. Pornography is becoming more violent because of that ease of access for a generation of boys in particular. Then very often they see that as normal behaviour. We can't criminalise a generation of children. When that behaviour does develop into harmful sexual behaviour, and beyond that quite serious offending, there needs to be a robust response.
A government spokesperson said they are taking forward a wide range of actions to help prevent child sexual abuse, bring more offenders to justice, and improve the support available to victims and survivors. There are 11 million people in the UK who suffered childhood abuse. Those on the front line know threats are evolving. With the scale of abuse described as endemic, preventing it is one of our greatest challenges. Alice Porter, Sky News.
And if you want to talk about what you experienced in childhood, then you can call NAPAC's support line on 0808 801 0331 or email support@napac.org.uk. Now, the US talk show host Jimmy Kimmel will be back on American TV screens later. His suspension over comments about the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk has been lifted by Disney. But not all of Disney's affiliates will carry the show. Well, let's bring in our US correspondent Martha Kellner, who's among the show's audience members in Los Angeles, gathering a bit later, I understand. Expecting a buzz there a bit later too, Martha. But this raises so many issues. What is free speech in Trump's America, and how media owners react when the US government is the arbiter in some pretty big business decisions?
Yeah, huge anticipation, Anna, ahead of Jimmy Kimmel's return to the airwaves. The filming of his show expected in the next couple of hours. We're seeing the first live studio audience members queuing outside the El Capitan Theatre. We now know that Jimmy Kimmel will have 2 live studio guests. One of those is Canadian singer Sarah McLachlan. She cancelled a show recently by ABC's parent company, Disney, in solidarity with Jimmy Kimmel. He'll also be joined by the actor Glenn Powell, who is a registered Democratic Party voter, although he's not overtly political. We don't know to what extent Jimmy Kimmel will address the political fallout from his suspension over the past week, but we can maybe glean that he will reflect on it to some extent by an Instagram post that he's made. He posted a picture of him together with the late TV producer Norman Lear, very famous TV producer, friend of Jimmy Kimmel and a known progressive political activist. Kimmel captioned that photo saying, "Missing this guy today." Not everyone in America, though, will be able to watch the Jimmy Kimmel show tonight. 25% of local ABC stations, the ABC is the broadcaster of the Jimmy Kimmel show, 25% of the local stations will not carry the Jimmy Kimmel show. Pointedly, they will show recorded news broadcasts instead. But certainly you can expect that Jimmy Kimmel will have record audiences tuning in tonight, and he'll not be short of material either.
Martha, more from you later. Thank you. Now, the Prince and Princess of Wales visited Southport today to show support for the families of those caught up in last summer's attack. William and Kate also spoke to teachers and pupils at the schools attended by the 3 young girls killed in that attack, Elsie Stankham, Alice Dasila Aguirre and B.B. King. Our chief North of England correspondent, Greg Muller, reports.
For the royal couple, as for so many families, the horror of Southport struck a particular chord. This was a return visit to show their continuing support for a community still mourning those 3 young girls. At the school where Elsie Stankham had been a pupil, they met some of those who should have been her classmates today.
Yeah, all good? Yeah. Enjoying school?
Yeah. It was away from the cameras. They met Elsie's parents, just as they did almost a year ago. At the school where B.B. King and Alice Da Silva Aguiar had been pupils, they met classmates who are using an art project as therapy.
Do you all love drawing and painting?
Yes. The rain represented our tears.
They also saw the new playground opened last week in memory of B.B. and Alice, a symbol the Prince said that love overcomes tragedy. The couple spending time with B.B.'s parents, wearing the friendship bracelets from her mum.
She's been honoured so well. It's really nice.
And meeting Alice's parents too.
It's a really lovely space out here now for all children.
And paying them all this tribute.
To Alex and Sergio, Lauren and Ben, Jenny and David, you are parents united in grief. You have faced such horror, but from that you move forward with grace and fortitude, creating the most remarkable legacies for your girls. We will always be here to support you. And to everyone impacted on that day, you will never be forgotten.
It is very special for having them here, coming to see what we all done together in memory of the girls. We turn something very tragic into a positive thing for all of our children, and they are happy, they are enjoying. So it is really nice having them here.
I think we're really grateful anyway how BB has been honoured so much in this school, and the fact seeing the Prince and the Princess support that and be here has been just amazing.
The couple met families and a community that can't yet move on from last July. There are so many questions about how it was allowed to happen, and the hope that the public inquiry going on now will provide them the answers. The events of that day, the Prince said, remain difficult to comprehend. There may be a lesson in what he says the girls' classmates have done. Support each other and remember in their own way. Greg Milam, Sky News, Southport.
Now, the much-loved cricket umpire and Yorkshireman Dickie Bird has died at the age of 92. Yorkshire Cricket Club, where he'd been president since 2014, described him as one of its greatest characters. The former England captains, Lord Ian Botham and Alan Lamb, have spoken to Sky News about their memories of Dickie Bird.
Look, he was special. We used to take the mickey out of him saying, oh, come on, Dickie, you've got to give some decisions. But, 99.9% of the time, he was spot on. He had a good sense of humour. I saw him not very long ago, and I'm quite shocked to see that he passed away. He looked in pretty good order. He hadn't really changed that much when I saw him last. So very sad. And 92, he'll be disappointed he didn't get those extra 8 for a century.
I do remember we were playing in the World Cup in India, and Dickie had fallen ill, and he couldn't eat, and he was dying, and he was telling everyone, get a doctor in, and there was a guard standing outside his room. So I went in, I said, Dickie, you have to umpire. The umpiring's so bad in this World Cup, we need you desperately. And he said, no, Lammy, I'm not going to make it. And he had this sort of gown, this old sleeping gown with a hat on, and he was lying there and he had the sheets pulled up. And I said, well, Dickie, if you're going to die, we might as well get rid of you quickly. So I walked outside, got the gun from the guard, the old policeman, and said, Dickie, well, I might as well get you out your misery. And I aimed the gun at him. And well, I've never seen a guy take off out of the bed and run down the corridor in the hotel. He umpired the following day. So that was, that's one way we got Dickie going quite well.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, joined by the UK director of the More in Common think tank, Luke Trill, and the journalist and broadcaster, Jenny Kleeman. Welcome to both of you. Among the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front page of The Times. Its headline for tomorrow's newspaper, shoot down Russian jets in NATO skies, says Donald Trump. That and plenty more, of course, when we come back.